everyone, and welcome back to Nutty Chess Tips with me, Nutty T. Today I'm going to show you some tactical and attacking chess with the Alekhine's defense when your opponents play the 4 pawns attack. So, as usual, check it out. First moves on the table are e4, knight f6, and as you can see from the highlighted arrows, if they go knight c3 here, I like to go d5 with the Scandinavian variation. So I'll put that in the link above, so check that out. Today I want to concentrate on this move, which is e5. We move the knight to d5, and now when they move the pawn to c4, we retreat the knight back to b6, and now they move the pawn to d4. Now, as you can see, these pawns look very strong in the center, but this is what we want. We just go d6. I'll show you in a future video what happens if they take here, but today I'm concentrating on this line, which is f4. Now we just take, and if they take with the d pawn, we take the queen, and it's just simplifying it for black. So most of the time you are going to see this move, f takes c. Now obviously we want to move this e pawn, but we do not want to restrict our light square bishop, so we develop the bishop to f5. The most common move I've seen here is knight c3 and now e6. If they decide to threaten this bishop with g4, this is just a bad move. Now we can just go queen h4 check. If they go king e2, now we can simply take, and look at this. This is not good for white. If they cover, then we can go knight c6, and look at this. This is just dominating. And if they make a random move such as bishop there, now we can just go check with the knight. The knight cannot take because it is pinned by the bishop, and now if the queen takes, we have this move, which is oosh. As you can see, the queen is gone. So let's go back. So obviously this is not a good move. They usually play in this position knight f3. Now we just develop another piece with a knight c6, keeping an eye on these 2 pawns. Now if they move the bishop to threaten our bishop, we have a lovely little move here. Kamikaze! Knight takes on d4. And now if they take, we simply take back with the knight. And as you can see, we're eyeing up this queen. If the queen takes, now we just take back with the rook, and look at this. I'm going with black every time here. So let's go back. So you'll usually see in this situation bishop e3. If bishop e3, now I go bishop b4. We're keeping an eye on this knight. If they ever move the a pawn, we now take the knight. When they take back, now we have this move, which is knight a5, and we're keeping an eye on this pawn. with this knight, and they've only got one defender. So if they ever go c5, we now go knight d5, and we're eyeing up the bishop. If they ever do this move, thinking you take my bishop, I take your knight, now we just go queen d7. If they take the knight, we take the bishop. Ideas of forking the king. If king f2, we can move the knight to check, which is decent enough, or we can simply take this bishop. And as you can see, we're in a good position here. So let's go back. What if they take the queen here? Well, if they take the queen, we just take back with the king. Our rooks are now connected. If they move the bishop to safety to safeguard this pawn on c3, we have this move, which is knight b3. We're eyeing up the rook. We're eyeing up the bishop. If they move the rook to threaten, we can simply whip it off. So let's go back. So the most common moves you'll see in this situation are bishop e2 or bishop d3. Now, if they go bishop d3, now I like this move, which is bishop g4. Now we're pinning both knights, and if your opponent decides to castle here, now we can simply win this pawn. So first off, we take the pawn. If they take with the bishop, now we take the knight on f3. When they take back with the queen, and now we have this beautiful move, which is queen d4, taking the bishop, checking the king. So when the king moves out of danger, now we can just castle and get out of danger. If the opponent goes for a checkmating pattern such as bishop e4, looking to eye up this b pawn, now we simply protect the pawn with c6. Now a common move here is this move, which is knight b5, a sacrifice, but it doesn't usually work. We take the knight, and now they come in and take this b pawn with a check. We move the king over to b8, and now they move the bishop to a6. Obviously here they have a checkmate in one. So whatever you do, do not get greedy and take this pawn. Just slide the queen back to d7. Now, if the rook goes to d1, we slide the queen over to c7. If they take the pawn on b5, we now take the rook on d1. When they take back, now we have this move, which is rook d8. Now, if they take, we take back, and now I've had this a couple of times in a game where your opponents just get greedy and take this pawn. But this is a losing mistake, as we have this move, which is skadoosh, queen d1. So let's go back. What if after this move they just take the rook on d8? We simply take back with our rook, and if they take the pawn, now we have this move, which is a queen e5. If they take the free pawn on f7, now we just come in with rook f8. And as you can see, it is guarded by the bishop. If the best move they can do is take, otherwise it's checkmate. So they take, and now we take back. When they take back with the rook, we now move the knight to c8. And now they've got to be very careful, because if bishop a6, now we have this move, queen e1. The only move they have is a rook f1, and now we have skadoosh, checkmate with the queen. So let's go back. So here, what if they just go bishop e2? If they go bishop e2, I like this move, which is castles. Now when they castle, now we go knight a5. We're going on the attack, and we are just eyeing up this weak pawn on c4. So there's two moves you'll usually see. You'll usually see knight d2, or you'll see the pawn push. First off, if the pawn pushes, now we can just take off this knight. If they take our knight, now we can just go bishop b2. If rook b1, I don't recommend taking the rook, because if we take the rook, the queen comes in, takes the bishop, and when the bishop moves out of danger, now they have this move, which is taking the c-pawn. When we take back, the knight can just go in to g5. And look at this, it's mating 1. So this is just not good for us. So instead of taking this rook, I just recommend putting the bishop on a3. Now if they take the pawn, we can just go queen c7. And now we are safe. Here though, they usually go queen a4. And now if they move the queen, now we can take the rook. Because now if they take the dark square bishop, we can now move the bishop back to g6. If they take the knight, now we just take the pawn and we're threatening the queen. And now if queen retreats to d2, queen d5. And look at this, we're eyeing up this weak pawn. If rook a1, now we can come to a3 with the rook. Now if knight moves, we now double those rooks. And look at this. If now the bishop moves to threaten the queen and this pawn, we now go queen a5. If bishop takes, now we go queen takes, bishop takes, and now we can go rook takes on a2. The rook has to take, and then we take back, and look at this. This is just winning for black. So let's go back. What if your opponent goes knight d2 here? Now we have a very strong move, which is c5. If they take, we can now again take this knight. If they take, knight d7, and as you can see, they've got this weak pawn on e5, as well as 3 pawns on the c file. This is just good for black. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I read them all and it's nice.